Good morning, everybody. Paul here coming at you with a Crypto Coffee update where we talk about all of the news, events, and happenings in the exciting world of decentralized finance that have occurred over the past week to a couple of days. Here we are with JP Morgan again, and just to get into that, we're going to need a fresh cup of coffee just to juice us up for all of this lovely information. Cheers. All right, I got as much energy as JP Morgan has money, probably not that much energy. Let's go ahead and see what their analysts are saying. The same quote we saw last time, defining an intrinsic or fair value for any cryptocurrency is clearly challenging, of course. And the views range from some researchers arguing that Bitcoin and crypto in general has no fundamental value, and others saying that fair value is well in excess of current prices. That's definitely most people here in crypto land, whereas some of the individuals on the outside are saying that perhaps there is no value to these systems whatsoever. Well, I'd argue that the cumulative proof of work, at least on the Bitcoin network, definitely demonstrates at least some level of empirical value just in general in the economy and in society. So even if valuations, fair valuations, whatever the market agrees upon, is much less than currently today's valuations, it's at least something. So saying it has no fair value is definitely, I think, a bit of an overreach. Here we have Anthony Pompliano from Morgan Creek Digital Capital. He has a great point. Never listen to what a bank says, always watch what they do. So that's something to consider. And that segues very nicely into Fidelity, because they've been doing a lot of stuff with Bitcoin, specifically all the way back in 2015 or so. CEO Abigail Johnson revealed on the episode of Unconfirmed with Laura Shin that they have been mining Bitcoin since 2015, well before the voracious 2017 bull run. And of course, they do have a room full of Bitcoin miners, so they are securing the Bitcoin network and perhaps even earning some of those block rewards. I'm assuming that they're working in a Bitcoin mining pool. So that's super cool to see Fidelity just reaching out and doing some actual proof of work in this new type of digital asset space. Here's Ari Paul saying that Fidelity's crypto culture is absolutely bonkers. Hundreds of passionate advocates at every level of seniority at the firm. They have people working on crypto that more people working on crypto than the 5 biggest firms combined. So Fidelity definitely seems to be on the ball in terms of digital asset management, specifically Bitcoin. Becoming, even relative to their institutional peers, a type of early adopter in a sense, toying with this new technology and actually working towards mining their own Bitcoin. Also, you see some very strong mainstream support from TD Ameritrade and E-Trade, two of the largest American retail brokers. They're going to be launching a spot cryptocurrency trading support soon for their clientele. Of course, spot trading meaning buying on the spot, so at the current market price. A bit different from futures trading, and definitely giving some of their clientele some direct exposure to this new class of digital assets. So that could do a lot potentially to help to hedge against a downturn in equities or commodities, maybe even the Forex markets, for example, given that Bitcoin specifically, as are other digital assets, currently uncorrelated with traditional markets. So very interesting stuff. We'll see how that plays out. And Bitcoin is definitely outperforming the stock market by a whopping 10 times. You can see Bitcoin's up 111% from its lows, stock market is up 12%. So while the stock market is a more traditional vehicle specifically for equities, ETFs that allow individuals to put their money to work, hopefully beat out inflation. Bitcoin definitely, despite all of its volatility, is still winning the gambit in terms of return on investment for the year thus far. Now, we are only about halfway through the year, so anything can happen, but given the recent upward trajectory, one has to imagine that from eToro, Matty Greenspan, he says it right. At this point, a $200 move in the price of Bitcoin could easily lead to a move of $2,000, as we've seen with the very sudden uptick. We're kind of in the disbelief phase, perhaps, if you buy into the fact that maybe we are in a new bull market. This could be the disbelief phase. This is just a sucker's rally. It'll fizzle out like all the rest. That's generally how these market cycles go. But of course, nothing is perfect. Nothing fits the chart 100%. So let me know what you think below in the comments. You think we're in the new bear market or bull market? It's been bear for so long, it's hard to say bull market. It's almost like a strange word now. But you think we're in the new bull market, or do you think perhaps this is kind of a consolidation phase? to shake out some of these long-term hodlers one last time before we shoot to the moon. Curious about what you guys think. And it's a great diversifier, as Anthony Pompliano has pointed out from Morgan Creek Capital Management. As said previously, it is an uncorrelated asset, and he believes that it should constitute at least 1% of every investment portfolio. Worst case scenario, it goes to zero, which hasn't happened thus far, as we previously discussed, and you lose 1% of your portfolio. But if Bitcoin is indeed the new store of value, digital gold, new form of money, whatever philosophy ultimately prevails, then that is a huge boon, even for just 1% of your portfolio. So very interesting perspective, something I think we can get behind, especially individuals here in this space. And the stock market decline is potentially imminent. This is something we've been hearing a lot now that the stock market has reached such nosebleed valuations. It's been going on for the longest bull market in equities in history, at least for the United States market. So very interesting stuff happening there. There's not a lot of room for central banks to maneuver. The United States could lower interest rates potentially. We've heard Trump talking about that. But in places like the ECB, and especially over in Japan, where they've already explored zero interest rate and have even delved into negative interest rate policies, one has to wonder what they have in their arsenal ultimately to help to ease any downturn in the equity market. And one has to speculate it's probably not that much unless they pivot towards quantitative easing, the printing of money, which is only going to weigh more heavily on inflation. So that's not really good for the consumer per se, but it could be good for the market. That's something that Gregory Mannarino has been talking about for a while now, one of his most recent videos. He mentioned that that's indeed what's going to happen. It's really the only MO that the Federal Reserve in particular has left is lowering rates and potentially opening up more quantitative easing. Wanted to give him a shout out since he has some great information specifically about the stock market and equities. He's worth a follow on Twitter, worth checking out his videos. He's kind of my go-to equities guy along with a few other individuals. So just wanted to give you guys some more information that you can in turn use to delve into and expand your own knowledge base about the wide world of markets that exist beyond crypto and potentially how they may influence the crypto markets themselves. So moving along from Bitcoin and other institutions to national sorts of things, the Japanese have been seeing an explosion in terms of interest for cryptocurrency. Exchanges have seen a threefold increase in new accounts since March. Now this is a big boom, especially since the data corresponds to Bitcoin prices between $37.50 and $41.50. Show of hands, who would like to go back in time and purchase Bitcoin around that price? That's what I thought. Definitely a huge boon, as we've seen, up 111% on the year, folks. Good stuff. And that's in March, while on May 14th, we saw it trading about 8,200. So Cointelegraph also reports Kraken has seen a big boom, but specifically in Japan, Bitpoint, DMM Bitcoin, and CoinCheck. Keep in mind, CoinCheck experienced what still I believe is the largest in terms of valuation, fiat valuation hack in the 2017 bull run, where they had over $500 million worth of NEM stolen from their coffers, and that's something that is still being worked out. But that's not dissuading the Japanese from jumping into the fray and creating new accounts and using these institutions, these entities rather than institutions, to purchase their crypto, speculating for perhaps a larger amount of gains that may well beat out the traditional market. So very interesting stuff there. Bitpoint 3 times higher from May and twice more than April. So we're seeing some momentum pick up over in the land of the rising sun. Really cool stuff. Now, speaking of Asian exchanges, well, I guess Maltese exchanges now, Binance is recording some record volume even higher than the 2017 bull run. So we're really seeing some fresh new faces, some new individuals entering into the space, since after all, that would have to be the case if we're seeing even more volume in terms of buying, selling, and just general market activity. CZ says it's a good problem to have. They're working on it, so hopefully this is a demarcator that they're well aware that the infrastructure that they're maintaining needs to be upgraded, since it only took, as we saw in the previous Crypto Coffee video, 2 months for Bitcoin to go from around $6,000 all the way up to that nosebleed valuation of $20,000. So if history is any precedent, exchange infrastructure can very easily get overwhelmed during these insane speculative manias where individuals are trying to create accounts like crazy. Tens of thousands of people. I think at one time they said 100,000 people every week, or was it every day? Either way, an insane amount of people flooding into Binance, and it overwhelmed their infrastructure. They had to shut down signups for a time. So hopefully CZ and other exchanges around the world are on top of this and kind of opining about when the next bull run may well indeed be begin in earnest and upgrading their infrastructure to mirror that. Trade, not order volume in USD, is a third of the peak, but Bitcoin price is a third, and ETH price is only a fifth of the last peak. Most other main alt prices are even lower, so that's amazing to see. And yeah, a lot of people are saying that bull run spotted, but also he lost $1,000 due to your app lagging or freezing. Sell orders do not go through. Please help. That's something I've seen a lot of times, not just for Binance in particular, but many exchanges when the infrastructure gets overwhelmed. Sometimes sell orders don't get confirmed, etc., etc. Perhaps this is just lost opportunity cost. Hopefully not an actual $1,000 lost for this user, but just something to keep in mind that when exchange infrastructure is being upgraded, when you're seeing a lot of volume and individuals on those exchanges, there can be technical issues and glitches that may ultimately lead, optimally, if you're going to experience a lost opportunity cost, but potentially even lost funds. So definitely be safe out there, guys, and reach out if something like that happens to the respective exchange. Hopefully they'll be able to get things situated on your behalf. Most of these exchanges now are more regulated and try to do right by their customers for that reason. So just something to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind, Orwellian Facebook is rolling out their creatively named, I mean, really amazing job, GlobalCoin. I can't pick on them too hard. I mean, if there's going to be a global coin, Facebook would be it. A third of the world uses Facebook. It's going to be a cryptocurrency, perhaps not a cryptocurrency, more of a digital payment medium in 2020. And interesting enough, Zuckerberg has circled back to work with his previous legal combatants, Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss. They also run Gemini, so they're potentially going to be helping facilitate what is now known as GlobalCoin, coming in 2020, previously known as Project Libra. So more information is beginning to slowly but surely come to light about what Facebook wants to do. Keep in mind, Facebook owns WhatsApp, and WhatsApp already has a digital payment means that allows individuals to send payments all around the world to other WhatsApp users. So the fact that they are using a new type of infrastructure that they've deemed a cryptocurrency, whether it is or not, we're not sure. We're going to have to wait for more information to come to light to give us an idea about exactly what kind of infrastructure Facebook will be launching for their global coin. But suffice to say, they're already talking about market creation and liquidity, and of course, the fact that the Winklevoss twins run a highly regulated exchange, that's a big factor for Facebook in particular. Again, a third of the world's population spread all around the planet. You want to make sure you're as regulatory compliant as possible, since any legal woes that Facebook runs into, especially given the context of their recent privacy debacles that seem to be coming one after another, they don't want that bad press, which is reasonable. So we'll keep you updated as these sorts of things develop. Again, they're going to raise about $1 billion, which is about how much Bitfinex raised. So we'll see if that is enough to get the ball rolling for GlobalCoin and keep you updated as things develop. Now, living on Bitcoin is something that just got a lot easier. AT&T officially accepts payments via BitPay. Now, BitPay is a third-party application that allows other merchants to accept Bitcoin and facilitates the transaction on their behalf, making it seamless for both users and merchants. So it's a really beneficial service out there. I've used it once or twice just to toy around with it, and it's very seamless and helpful. Now, not only can you purchase your cell phone needs over at AT&T using Bitcoin, but you can also buy some sweet threads over at Nordstrom, shop for gaming supplies at GameStop, and buy directly your groceries from Whole Foods, all using your favorite digital currency. Now, this does have a bit of a downside, something I think was really great to point out. So cheers to this article. Let's give some credit where credit's due here. Rick D, good point here, man. Just like in other recent announcements, this is not so good for speculators per se, but really good for crypto users. The reason being, at point of sale, at time of payment, BitPay automatically converts the crypto into US dollars or the respective fiat currency of choice for these merchants. This creates downward pressure on the crypto markets, the Bitcoin market specifically, if that's going to be the medium of choice, and that can be negative for speculators, since any downward pressure in the market kind of presses price downward. But for crypto users, it's fantastic. You're able to actually use your preferred cryptocurrency as a medium of exchange to purchase goods, services, foods, and according to AT&T, as of now, your cell phone bill. So thanks to AT&T and BitPay for that, and pretty exciting times happening, folks. Now, moving on from the nations and institutions and merchants, let's talk a bit about what's going on under the hood of some of these crypto. Now, Bitcoin Cash, much loved by some, derided by others, they've decided to take a bit of a controversial stance and undo a transaction using a 51% attack against their own network. This has some users perturbed, other users saying, well, this is a demonstration of self-interest and a demonstration that two large mining pools ultimately have the community's well-being at heart. But it's definitely led to kind of a esoteric philosophical questioning as to whether this is good, bad, or otherwise. And I'm curious to hear what you think below in the comments as we go through this story here. So ultimately what happened is BTC Top, or BTC.com and BTC Top, respectively, they control less than 51%, but with their powers combined, they are over 51% of the Bitcoin Cash hashing power. Now, the reason they weaponized, allegedly, or I guess technically, from a technical standpoint, they did indeed weaponize their hashing power against their own chain to reverse a transaction is the fact that a network upgrade unlocked a amount of coins that were previously unspendable. And to coordinate a reorg to revert unknown, this is the individual who's not too happy about it. Let's go to the anatomy. Here we go. Since the original split, there's been a significant number of coins accidentally sent to what's known as anyone can spend addresses due to the transaction compatibility of signatures, but no SegWit on Bitcoin Cash. Or possibly they've been replayed from Bitcoin onto the Bitcoin Cash network. Once the code change was removed during Bitcoin Cash's May 15th hard fork, the coins became spendable again, basically handing these coins to the miners. What does this mean? Well, this meant that one savvy miner ultimately said, hey, I'm going to mine some empty blocks and I'm going to get these coins. I don't care about confirming the transactions per se, just going to mine these empty blocks and get these now spendable coins as quickly as possible. And voila, he was successful. Ultimately, this perturbed BTC Top and BTC.com, seeing this as almost a type of theft, since this miner mining empty blocks attempted to just take these coins for his or herself. So what they did is they jumped right in and used their hashing power to reverse this transaction, turning back the Bitcoin Cash network and returning those coins, assumingly to themselves. No one's really sure exactly where they went as of yet, but one thing's for certain, those coins went somewhere. And here's one user who's not too happy about it. To coordinate a reorg to revert unknown transactions. This is a 51% attack, the absolute worst attack possible. It's there in the white paper. What about miner and developer decentralized and uncensorable cash? Only when convenient? Question mark. This is something that previously happened on BTC Bitcoin as well, but this was way back in 2012 or 2013. Don't exactly remember off the top of my head. I'll see if I can dig that up for you, put it below in the description. But this is back when BTC Bitcoin was very young. Now, an argument could be made, Bitcoin Cash is very young, so perhaps this is acceptable, and as the network grows, it will become less susceptible to these kind of rollbacks or 51% attacks that are for the greater good. But one has to wonder, again, if this is uncensorable cash and decentralization only when convenient. Again, I'm really curious what you guys think. Let me know below in the comments. Is this good? Is it bad? Is it otherwise? Or is it simply just an expression of individual and entity collective self-interest in some capacity? Now, continuing with some technical sadness, Litecoin user paid 200 Litecoin, about $17,000, to send 8.88 Litecoin. Oh, well, his transaction got confirmed really quickly, if there's any silver lining, but given the amount of money this guy spent to send this transaction, it's hard to say that there's any silver lining. It's a rare and unfortunate occurrence coming from Litecoin.com when this happens, but yesterday on May 23rd, someone paid 200 Litecoin, valued $17,536, to send simply 8 Litecoin, which is not that much comparatively. Not going to run the math right now, but yeah, basically it's almost 10 times more than the actual amount that was sent in terms of what this user paid in fees. What really sucks is this is a business and not a sole individual, so assumingly this business was perhaps unfamiliar about the actual user interface, and just goes to show how careful you got to be out there, folks. It's definitely, when you're sending transactions, especially with this amount, it's the kind of thing you want to do meticulously and ensure that everything is in order. Now, the graphical user interfaces and user interfaces in general are beginning to improve, luckily, for many of these coins, but unfortunately Litecoin is one of those coins that still uses the old looking clunky wallet. You can customize a lot of stuff, but ultimately it can be a bit difficult to use at times, and as you can see, if it if things go awry, then ultimately things can go really awry. And here it is, $778 was sent with a $17,000 fee. That sucks. I really feel for this business, especially if the business just was trying to onboard crypto, get an idea as to how it worked, and kind of toy around with it as a payment medium. Well, this may turn them off of crypto, at least for the foreseeable future, for sure. Definitely a stinging sensation there. So best of luck to this business and the individuals behind it. Hopefully they can recoup this in some way, shape, or form, but either way, definitely a wonderful cautionary tale for all of you folk out there. Now, some more positive news. IOTA is rolling out a decentralized transaction validation process to replace their centralized coordinator. This is something 2 years ago, perhaps even longer, I was decrying, saying, look, you got a centralized coordinator. Ultimately, it controls the entirety of the network, so while it is something that you're aiming towards, decentralization that is, it's ultimately a centralized completely network. They could blacklist transactions, etc., etc. Not that they ultimately did, at least in a way that would be abusive towards the network, but it's a pause for concern. Now that it seems that the Internet of Things blockchain IOTA has grown to such heights, they're going to remove this centralized coordinator and ultimately allow for a decentralized coordination process. So I'm happy about that. I don't want to say I'm sold, but I'm definitely pleased to see that that is indeed something that they are following through with and living out in real time. Now, there may be some bumps along the way, and it seems as though they're going to leave the coordinator kind of dusty in the closet to roll back out in case anything does go awry, but ultimately they seem quite confident, both in terms of sentiment and mathematically, that this is going to be something that they can do feasibly in the very foreseeable future, according to David Stonsenbo, the co-founder and operator of the IOTA Foundation. IOTA was designed to address the limitations of blockchain with a feeless and scalable solution. That is now becoming a reality. With this major milestone, we are poised to accelerate into our next phase of growth and enterprise adoption in the real world. Now, we're not really seeing refrigerators talking to toasters, talking to Whole Foods to settle payment in IOTA yet. I say yet because that is a possibility. Ultimately, if this works out, this could be very interesting to see, especially as devices need to communicate using small amounts of currency, and IOTA seeks to fill that niche. So very interesting stuff, and congratulations to the IOTA team. Really rough term though, they're calling it coordicide, a combination of, I guess, side to kill and coordinator. Funny enough, the word decide actually comes from the same etymology. It means to kill off other options, and it looks like they have decided to go with coordicide. So some good news going on there. Less happy news. The Lightning Network is being heavily data mined right now. Opening channels allows anyone to cluster your wallet and associate your keys with your IP address. Yikes. Use Tor, use private channels, use coin joins. This is something that users apparently, according to David Shares, have been saying for quite a while. And the fact that you need centralized hubs of liquidity for micropayments on the Lightning Network is something that has some users perturbed, concerned, and questioning the very future of the Lightning Network. Now, I've never spun up my own node. I haven't gotten my hands dirty with the Lightning Network, but I've been watching from afar, kind of opining and speculating on how this may play out. And ultimately, it seems as though the bumps in the road have drawn on well beyond the initial 18-month timeline that they set out way back in 2015. So suffice to say, this is not a good look for the Lightning Network currently. Ultimately, they could probably fix the issue, but perhaps not without large centralized hubs of liquidity that will ultimately, in some way, shape, or form, have the ability to ascertain your IP address. Whether this is good or bad, I'm curious what you think. Personally, I'm not too comfortable with that. There does seem to be some fixes using Tor, private channels, etc. But to what lengths will individual users, just the layman, go to obfuscate their IP address? It seems as though a lot of older users, they don't even have virus protection, so something to consider. Ultimately, I hope all goes well for the Lightning Network. Ultimately, it's about user privacy, and that's something I think everyone has a right to, so hopefully this doesn't spiral into a larger issue and they can get this kind of thing patched up sooner rather than later. Now, your daily dose of drama. Let's get a nice scoop of that. Craig Wright, yet again, the Copyright Office does not recognize him as Satoshi. This is something we touched on 2 Crypto Coffee updates ago, I believe. There was so much excitement, which is so rare for the Copyright Office, I'm sure, considering that it seems to be a relatively mundane and predictable kind of process, especially relative to the crypto community. And when the two worlds met, I could imagine that they were considering what is going on. These people are voracious and excitable, and there's all kinds of terminology we don't understand. We got to issue a statement. Rare for the Copyright Office. They said, importantly, the registrations issued by the U.S. Copyright Office recognize Wright as the author under the the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto, both the white paper and code. This is the first government agency recognition of Craig Wright as Satoshi, the creator of Bitcoin. So yeah, that's ultimately what was said. So that's the release itself. The copyright, on the other hand, doesn't actually recognize anyone for anything. Here we are. Ultimately, it's a repository designed to protect creators of art and literature. So by filing this copyright, it doesn't mean that the US Copyright Office says, yep, you're Satoshi Nakamoto. It's just a recognition of submission, and it's a recognition that, okay, well, I guess you could protect this. However, there are some alternative claims about the fact that the Bitcoin white paper was indeed issued under the MIT license. So there's some speculation as to how legitimate this is, but of course, this is going to be movement at the speed of government, so we'll keep you updated as new things come to light. But Craig Wright has been a bit of a bully here, that's for certain. He's suing Peter McCormick for 100,000 Great British pounds for libel. Essentially, the case can amount to 750,000 pounds. Which is a pretty hefty case, and Peter McCormick isn't left with a lot of options. He has a handful. Ultimately, he can represent himself, represent through a legal counsel, go through mediation, or not contest the claim. As we mentioned, the claims for 100K Great British pounds, going for legal counsel will rack that up to another 50K, but if it goes to trial, it could be as much as £750,000, and if he loses, it'll double that because he'll have to pay Craig Wright's legal fees as well. He's explaining that he's not contesting the claim. It's also an option, rather not that he's not contesting, it's an option that he won't contest it. It won't give him the publicity he's looking for, but it'll cost him over $100,000, worst case his house. He's talking about potentially going into bankruptcy and reputation damage. Ultimately, if he fights and wins, that won't be too big of an issue, but if he doesn't fight, it could, again, result in bankruptcy. So this is definitely a bully tactic, something that I don't condone personally. And the social attacks have been relentless. I've seen it personally here at Cryptide. Someone said I was going to get headshot because I don't believe in BSV. That's some absolute, like, almost jihadi level insanity, in my opinion. It's just a cryptographic coin. Really, ultimately, it's proof of work, as in the one that works the best is going to have some market share. So such voracious and negative and bully tactics is something I find just very unpalatable. But suffice to say that Wright attempts to sue everyone who calls him a fraud, and the social attacks against Peter have been relentless. From he calls them shills or sock puppets. Who knows if they're actually shills or sock puppets, or if they're really gullible people out there who are just being really mean and nasty to defend their own self-interest. That's not the way you should go about that kind of thing. They've been using DMs, emails, YouTube comments, etc. As said, I've experienced it here at Cryptide just by questioning and opining about, could Craig Wright be Satoshi? It seems kind of strange that someone who went through such intense lengths to preserve their anonymity and ensure that they would never be known ultimately reappears on the scene and gets really angry when people don't immediately believe him. It's kind of like barricading your house and putting up boards and barbed wire and that sort of thing, and then getting really angry when people don't take you up on your offer to come on, walk right on through and walk in the front door. You kind of made it difficult to do so. So we'll see how this unfolds. Best of luck to Peter McCormick and Craig Wright's bully tactics here. Hopefully things work out well for both parties and everyone can have this as water under the bridge and ultimately just build and let the best coin win. But I don't think that, unfortunately, will be the case. We'll have to see as this plays out. But that's all the information we have for you today. I hope you found this informative, beneficial, helpful. I certainly enjoy going through all this information with you guys. I've been waiting a bit longer to do these updates since there's so much information, and realistically, it takes some time to suss out what's worth covering and what's not. If you're interested in equities, go check out Gregory Mannarino. Again, he has some great stuff there, guys. There's a big financial world outside of just the crypto markets. Then sometimes what happens in the outside of the crypto markets really heavily influences what happens within. So we'll keep you updated as new things come to light. Much love, guys. It was my pleasure. My name is Paul. We are Cryptide, and remember, the tide is rising, as is the amount of news and the Bitcoin price. What do you think? Bull market?